Everyone has at least one moment in a given piece of media that resonates with them on some deeper emotional level. This may be at the end of a work when a character is about to say their final goodbye to a close friend, a bittersweet ending after a hard-fought victory, or a sudden serendipitous encounter that reignites the spirit of both the protagonist and the player. These moments, however, are not only found in big climactic scenes as one might expect. Some may only last a second, maybe a joke paying off hours into a novel, or a throwaway line that happens to pierce through the player's psyche based on their real-world circumstances. Regardless of the means by which this moment is developed, almost everyone who consumes forms of media, especially narrative-based video games, is bound to have some moment like this. As an avid JRPG fan born in the late 90s, I've taken it upon myself to play through a variety of the quote-unquote classic JRPGs that were released before my time, in attempts to experience new stories beloved by so many of my peers. Some of these games, like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI, had been re-released on consoles that I owned, while other games like Golden Sun and Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga were being released just as I started to understand what a video game was. For both flavors of these JRPG titles, my golden opportunity to play them was during my teenage years. These were games that commanded my attention and kept my interest whenever I had free time, perhaps to the disdain of my parents and classmates. Eventually, college took over, and I wasn't able to spend an entire Saturday sitting on the couch grinding away at MOOCs to get the materials needed to upgrade my weapons or something. Playing games became a luxury that I could only take advantage of during breaks and lulls in academia. While The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild came out in 2017 and is not, in fact, a JRPG, but the only game I have to prove this point, it wasn't until 2021, when I had graduated college, when I finally got around to playing the game at my own pace. I couldn't just plow through an entire game over the course of a weekend anymore. Most games, then, had to be shelved for most of the year and played in nibble-sized pieces. The sole exception to this trend over the 4 years of my undergraduate degree was Pokémon Sword, which I rushed through over a Thanksgiving break in order to play some of the side quests with my roommates. And even then afterwards, I didn't play any of the DLC because, again, I ran out of time. It wasn't until the end of 2020 that I finally had time again. Like many other recent college graduates from the year 2020, things in my life were incredibly uncertain. I lived by myself, saw very few people, and only remained social on the internet with the people I could message over Discord. I had a small gig doing voiceover work, but this wouldn't last me forever, and I had no certain plans about graduate school other than just applying and praying. I had no way of knowing what would be happening even 2 months from then. But I had time. On December 8th, 2020, I was wrapping up work on my final undergraduate classes and hitting my weekly running goals by running along bike trails through Quarry Park in Madison, seeing no one. Keeping COVID in mind as I ran, I was making sure to avoid anyone that I might cross paths with in order to stay healthy and safe. I didn't mind living a life of solitude in person as long as I had my means of connecting with people online, which I found via streaming with my friends in Amberstone. The week prior, we had finished the live dubbing playthrough of Ace Attorney Investigations 2: Prosecutor's Path, and seeing as I wanted to continue my trend of playing through old JRPGs and other very long narrative-based games, I realized it was the perfect time to set my sights on the one game that had been recommended to me both by people who I knew and people who didn't know me. Xenogears. The brainchild of Tetsuya Takahashi and Soraya Asaga, Xenogears is an incredibly fascinating, narratively complicated game focusing on the relationship between Fei Fong Wong and Elhaim Ellie Van Houten. What was initially pitched as a Final Fantasy VII concept, then considered as a sequel to Chrono Trigger, is a story that focuses on so many different themes, drawing from varying sources, including Jewish mysticism or Kabbalah, Gnosticism, and even Jungian and Freudian psychology, among other things. The player controls Fei and other party members over the course of the game, engaging in active time battles both on foot and in monstrously large humanoid mechas known as gears, which, if you've seen Neon Genesis Evangelion, well, you may know where this is going. To put it very simply, there are some underlying secrets to these mechs that the player discovers over the course of the game. While I could go into the whole story of Xenogears here, I will instead leave you, the viewer, to explore this game for yourself if you haven't already, as it is a game worth playing. If rather you just want an in-depth story analysis of the game, I highly recommend the Resonant Arc podcast, which covers the entire plot and bonus material in 21 episodes. It's wonderful commute material, but I digress. Xenogears. About halfway through the game, the player travels to a place called Zeboim, an ancient city that has been discovered deep beneath the ocean, and is being excavated for potentially useful materials for the ongoing conflict on the continent of Ignis. If the player has Ellie in their party, they will experience a series of flashbacks to a different time in which characters who appear similar to Fei and Ellie are killed in attempts to defend a small, green-haired girl. Later on, the player will fight this character, Emeralda, in her gear Crescens, and upon defeating her, she will join your party. Emeralda's background isn't entirely made clear to the player through simply playing through the main plot of the game, however. Sure enough, though, the player can take on an optional set of side quests near the end of the game, in which they return to Zeboim. Exploring the city, the player may discover a variety of clues that imply Zeboim may be more similar to our real-life present day. And, if the player takes Emeralda to a very specific subway station in Zeboim, they will be able to experience the scene in Xenogears that impacted me the most as a person. I think it's best shown rather than explained here. Where are we? Now this.
They had time for this.
It's Christmas. Congratulations, Ellie. Another year has come and passed.
Kim.
Oh my god. Yes! Happy New Year, Kim. I don't know what it is, but just now, you sounded like an old person speaking.
Boomer.
No, well, this time last year I never thought the war would come this far.
Yes, but we managed to get by without getting involved.
But it's not over yet. Why, at this very moment, people are still dying.
Let's stop talking about this. Let's not dwell on the past year. Not at the start of a new year.
Yes, well, today at least, I want to spend a day without worrying.
Wow, it's so magical.
Stupid! Idiots! Bunch of fools!
Kim, you're far too loud.
I don't care if they hear me. All the people here are also fools.
Kim!
Think about it. What's the purpose of fighting each other on such a tiny planet as this? Fighting out of fear of being hunted into a corner?
rushing into a fight as if there were only so many reserved seats to the right of life? Starting a war is stupid. Inciting it is also stupid. Killing people as an act of terrorism or as a protest against the wars that kill people is just as stupid. You're all fools!
I felt sorry for that child. But I don't think people in Ravine destroyed the generator with that intention.
This is just Final Fantasy VII, but with changed names.
Oh.
Yep.
They don't have any other ways to express themselves. The government is the one to blame.
Is that a good enough reason for that child or those dead people? It wasn't much of an operation. It was difficult, but there was a chance to win. We'd have won if we had better equipment. That child would have been saved if there was electricity. It's not just that child. 5 people died in my hospital. The ICU didn't function. Stupid. Just fools. Humans, creatures are meant to live. Why do they want to die out? Why do they strangle themselves? Humans are defective creatures. A bunch of fools. That's why genetic damage is up lately. The birth rate is also going down. Only 30 years to live. Nature, this planet, won't allow humans to live any longer than that.
This is getting too real. Am I a fool too?
Huh?
I had a physical at the hospital today. They said I can't have children because of hereditary genetic damage. I can't create life. I am a creature waiting to become extinct. Am I also a fool?
It can feel a little corny to say that a scene such as this impacted me in such a way, but here I am. You could see it on my face. 2 fictional characters discussing morality and death, and the eventual extinction of their species is not unheard of in many different JRPGs, but something was different for me in this scene. Maybe it was because by this point in the game, I'd been reading for the part of Faye for almost 70 hours. Or maybe it was because my girlfriend was reading for the part of Ellie. Or maybe it was beyond the scope of the game itself. Or maybe, even still, it was a combination of all 3 reasons. Being in the scene and working on my acting, I allowed myself to be vulnerable in those moments. And with the melancholic October Mermaid setting the mood, I found myself thinking about how their uncertainty in the world wasn't unlike my own. In the peak of the first COVID winter, while living by myself, I found myself playing a character living through an extinction of their species, trying to save everyone. The fear and uncertainty delivered in Ellie's lines about her infertility struck me profoundly, much like how it did when I found out the people closest to me had caught COVID. The rest of the game may have still revolved around the more clearly defined fiction of giant mechs fighting each other as a god computer attempted to return to its plane of existence while forcing the evolution of mankind with the aid of a man who has lived over 500 years through the power of nanomachines. But in that moment, everything felt real. It's hard to find a way to wrap up these thoughts in a meaningful way, but I came away from that scene feeling happy, even if that happiness was tinged with melancholy. Despite everything occurring in my world at the time, and relating to those difficult feelings that characters in the scene had, I came away with a sense of hopefulness for my future. It's hard to put into words why, but I'm going to try to do my best. This scene made me see that there are relatable moments in fiction, which implies that even my specific fears and uncertainties are not just my own, and that there are others in the world who feel the way I do. This scene says, this is a normal feeling. At the risk of getting too existential and sappy and mishy-mashy, this video is already as sad as it is. I'll simply say that I'm glad that playing through deep games like this has given me the opportunity to reflect on my own feelings and grow as a person. Any emotional scene in a piece of media can influence how people feel, but it's much rarer that a scene plunges itself into the core of your very existence and makes a real difference in your life. That's what this moment is to me, and it's why this particular scene in Xenogears is one of my favorites of all time.